And we are live with video cam footage 2. Welcome everyone to this week's Into the NFL Deep Dive. As of course, we did this 2 weeks ago. We didn't to do it last week, just didn't have the time. But hey, here we are. We got the video cam set up this week too. Got all our topics written down this time and kept in order, unlike last time where I just kind of rambled on all over the place. But yeah, let's get right into it. Let me just adjust this quickly. Trying to see if we should do this just face cam or just have something in the background, even though last time I did not. Although that is something that can be arranged. I'm going to do it like this for now. See how this looks. So if I am doing some tests, we'll do this, but see how this looks. But yeah, I think I'm going to keep it with the full. That just looks overall better, and there we go. We are live for the day. So to everyone new who's watching this is what I do. I try to come on weekly. Originally, I had said in the last stream that I was going to try to do Wednesdays. Thursdays are looking like the more better day, I guess, if that makes any sense for me right now. But it would be before Thursday Night Football does kick off. For Thanksgiving, though, I do not know if I'll be streaming that week or if it will be on a Wednesday. This is still kind of in early testing phases, but nothing I can do there. Except figuring out slowly over time. So let's get into it, starting off with last week's games. And let's just say there was quite a bit of bad football all around. But, gotta say, kicking it off was Philly versus Houston on Thursday Night Football. At the same time this was going on was also the Phillies versus Astros. I think that was in Philly while this game was played in Houston. I was unfortunately at work that night, but which is why there was no stream. But from what I've seen is Houston definitely did keep up in the first half, as it was tied 17-17 in the third quarter. And then they just kind of laid down and tanked. I'm going to be honest there. If anything, they should be just tanking the rest of the season for a new quarterback. I wanted to believe in Mills going into the beginning of the season, but that did not turn out to be how it's going to go, so nothing I can do about that either. Then kicking out with some of the other games, we had the Jags versus... Right, that was week 8. Take that back. We have Jags versus Raiders. I was going to go into Jags versus Denver, but that was the week it was off. Yeah, I don't know what to think about the Raiders. I think Josh McDaniel needs to be fired, and I think Derek Carr will be gone at the end of the season. That's just the way I see it going, but the Raiders are not good. Chandler Jones has a half a sack on the season. Looks like the worst free agent possible that anyone could have signed. Should have just stuck with the Cardinals in Arizona for a little bit longer, but we'll get to them in a minute. Raiders need to blow it up. That's all I can say. They aren't going anywhere. Josh Jacobs will look like a enticing free agent after the season since he didn't have his thing picked up, his 5th year. Got a few injuries and a retirement that happened earlier today. We'll get into those later. As for the Jags, they need this win to stay in the garbage that is the AFC South, but I mean, I don't trust them to do anything in the playoffs if they make it, but that's just the way it looks. As for our next games, we have the Bills versus Jets. I did not see the Jets winning. Cool to see them win, though. They have one of the best secondaries in the NFL, I will say. If not the best. The best cornerback duo, DJ Reed. He came in from Seattle to New York. Looked like quite a great free agent pickup, I think on a 3-year deal. Sauce Gardner, absolutely amazing. Nothing new there. And then I think it's Jordan Whitehead. He was a safety, played for the Bucks when he signed with New York. Looks pretty good too. As for Buffalo, they played ugly. Wide receivers couldn't do anything. Josh Allen, he ended up hurting himself during the final play of the game. He was the only person to score. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Their Bills' run game just doesn't really seem to exist. The run defense really didn't exist, as James Robinson scored on them. I think Michael Carter did as well. They rushed all over the Bills. Didn't have to do much passing, which was good because Zach Wilson is looking like the only issue on the team. But we'll see how that plays out, especially if they end up making the playoffs. Next, we have Carolina. They ended up losing badly. Joe Mixon had 5 touchdowns on them for Cincinnati. I didn't really expect much. They sucked. They fired their head coach. They traded away Christian McCaffrey. They were starting PJ Walker. It really, reality just ended up hitting them in the face right there. But Baker Mayfield did not look too bad during the second half of the game and really tried rallying up back against them, but at that point they were so far down it didn't really even matter. Next we have the Packers versus the Lions. Packers season, I'm calling it now. They will probably lose to Seattle. I mean, oh wait, I got that wrong. They will lose to the Cowboys this week. I don't know if they play Seattle. I thought they do, but if they do, they really are not going to win that game. Their season is over with. I'm calling it now. Aaron Rodgers will retire after the season. They will not draft a wide receiver in the first round because that's the way they like doing it. They will probably draft another defensive player. Aaron Jones is now day to day, so good luck there. That's like the one weapon Rodgers liked. And then Romeo Dubs, he is out for a few weeks. Well, it's considered week to week at least. Possible candidate for the IR, who knows yet? I don't trust them at all. They're so far back in their division. So the Vikings. And as the Lions, props to them. Dan Campbell even said that after the game he was really tired. He wanted to go kick up his feet and drink a beer after beating the Packers. I don't blame him. I would too. Especially when the team played really good, especially on defense. Not so much on offense. I had 2 rookie tight ends, one being Shane Zelstra. He was brother to Brandon Zelstra. Both of them are from Marshall, Minnesota. They got to play in the game, so elevated from the practice squad, one up scoring. Good for them. I mean, the real star of that game would be, I think, 4th round rookie Kirby Joseph. I don't know exactly what spot he was drafted at, but played lights out. As for the Packers, they played anything but lights out. 3 red zone interceptions. That usually does not happen for Aaron Rodgers at all. So one of the throws was to left tackle David Bakhtiari, and then Hayden Hutchinson picked it off. So I really liked seeing that highlight. I didn't really get to watch much of the game because I was watching the next game, Vikings versus Washington. Defensive battle. That's all I can say. It was a defensive battle. Vikings end up one off in the fourth quarter. Getting the win over Washington. Washington's D-line just bullied Kirk Cousins all day. All their offensive linemen had very poor ratings except Christian Darrisaw, who is looking like the left tackle of the future for Minnesota. Trent Williams even called him a younger version of himself, so very excited to see that for the future of the Vikings. But hey, that's a going into it thing, and I'm just happy for it. As for Taylor Heineke, he played solid. Washington overall did play solid. They had that one touchdown to Curtis Samuel because the ref bumped right into Cam Bynum, knocking him over onto the ground. That would have been an interception for Minnesota. Then there was another interception that would have gone all the way back for Washington that was called back due to defensive holding. That was holding. I've been seeing a lot of comments saying it wasn't holding. Well, it clearly was. Go back and watch the tape. I may not be biased on that, but it clearly was. Next game we have would be Tampa Bay versus the Rams. Both teams suck. Both teams don't deserve to be in the playoffs. I don't think either team will make the playoffs. You can still go and vote. I do think Atlanta will still win the division. I might be delusional for saying that, but I do think they will. Tom Brady, though, he may be having a down year. He still is the comeback king. I'll give him that. Gonna beat Tom Brady in those last-minute situations, especially on Zone D, which he destroys. I don't know what the Rams are thinking of that. Then they released safety Terrell Burgess, who was now on the Giants after the game, which was really confusing for me. But, hey, I guess I'm not a GM of a multi-billion-dollar NFL team, so I guess I can't say anything. Next game, we have Indy versus New England. Frank Reich is fired. Jeff Saturday is our interim head coach with no previous NFL or college coaching experience. I think they fired the wrong guy. I think they should have stuck with Wentz. And New England, all they really had to do was just absolutely bully Sam Ehlinger, and they won easily. Not much to do besides that, especially when Colts defense is horrible. I don't even think Shaquille Leonard has played once. As I have seen this a lot, Shaquille actually is the name for Darius Leonard, and he wants to go by his real name, Shaquille, now. I don't know exactly the story behind him being named Darius Leonard, but his real name is Shaquille Darius Leonard. So he wants to go by his actual first name. For anybody wondering that. Next up, we have Seattle versus Cardinals. I do think Seattle will win that division, depending on their game versus the 49ers. As for the Cardinals, they suck. I think Cliff Kingsbury's the next head coach fired. I think extending him was the most horrible thing they could have done. I think they missed Jordan Hicks and Chandler Jones on the defense. As for Seattle, they just need to keep winning. Their defense may not be the greatest, but they do have a bunch of young players like Tariq Woolen, trying to make his case against Sauce Gardner for Defensive Rookie of the Year, as well as being an All-Pro player, although he should do that relatively easily. Their front seven is not the greatest, I will admit that, but if they keep scoring like they do, they should make the playoffs with ease. Up next, we have the Bears versus Miami game. Well, see, this is why they fired Matt Nagy, because now that they're actually comfortable letting Justin Fields do his thing, he just had 176 rushing yards, most by a quarterback ever in a single game. Put up 32 points on the Miami defense, which is supposed to be top 10. Their secondary is horrible. Xavier Howard hasn't really been a factor at all, and I'm not even sure if Byron Jones is off the IR yet. So there's that. I didn't get to see much of the game, so I don't know how Bradley Chubb really did, but I'm going to guess in the run defense he didn't do all that great because the Bears running all over him. As for the passing, Bears passing offense, it looked mediocre more though what I had seen, but I can't say much more. As for Miami, they are still undefeated with Tua not dying in a single game and actually playing the whole game. Good for him. He is legitimately in the MVP candidate race, I would say. And I think he really has shut all his haters out about it. Tyreek Hill should be in the MVP race. I will add that too. So that we have Atlanta versus the Chargers. So from what I had seen was a fumble that Atlanta had picked up, and then they started running with it, and then fumbled again that caused the Chargers to win the game. That seems like the season for both of them. Chargers being very injury wrecked. And Atlanta being Atlanta, they like to choke everything away, so it just seemed like the Chargers versus the Chargers type game and Atlanta versus themselves type game as well. So pure chaos. That's just what we'll call it. Then we have the Sunday night game, Kansas City versus the Titans. Titans, I will admit, they put up a good fight. But when your offense has no wide receivers, they could really use both Treylon Burks and A.J. Brown right now. Yeah, because we all know how one is down the IR and one they trade away, who they sorely miss, to the Eagles. Kind of hard to do anything, especially when you're playing against Patrick Mahomes, who passed 70 times on you. It's kind of hard to beat him, but props to them for making them only put up 20 points. As for Malik Willis, I think he needs to develop a bit more. He is not that great. I remember when he was projected to be picked number 2 overall to the Detroit Lions. I was not bored with that at all. Lions made the correct choice not to pick him. He really needs more time to develop. That's all I'll admit there. Especially the Chiefs, they play a bit sloppy. I will admit that as well. There was a holding call on Travis Kelce that was not called. That could have put the game away even earlier than it should have been, but refs this year have been really bad. That's all I can say on that. I really need to fire about half of them. And lastly, we'll have the Ravens versus Saints Monday night game. I did not get to witness the game. I did have to work. I did not get to witness. I cannot say much. All I know is the Saints are fucked. They're absolutely fucked. They have no cap. They are like negative $40 million in cap. I think the Packers are a bit worse. They're like negative 56, and they're the top 2. Michael Thomas is out for the year. Yeah, they have no top 40 picks, it looks like. I don't remember if they have their second or not. No, they don't have their first. And no solution at quarterback. They're fucked. Jameis is not the answer, as much as people want him to be. Andy Dalton has been playing solid, but that's at his best. As they suck. They definitely suck. As for the Ravens, they need this win after a few depressing losses when teams like the Giants came back on them, but well deserved for them for getting the win. That covers all the games from last week. Obviously, 6 teams had byes. The Browns, the Broncos, the Chargers. Not the Chargers. The Cowboys, the Giants, 49ers, and someone else. I don't remember off the top of my head. All had byes last week, so it was only 13 games. Bye weeks this week, for everyone who needs to know, are the Jets, the Bengals, the Ravens, and the Patriots. 4 AFC teams. Most notable would be Cincinnati with Joe Burrow, Joe Mixon, and Tyler Boyd for fantasy reasons, but no Jamar Chase, obviously, because he's hurt. As for this week's games of note, we have the Falcons versus Panthers on Thursday Night Football. I will be watching that to get my honest reaction out to you for next week. We do have the Vikings taking on the Bills in Buffalo. Currently, it is unknown whether Case Keenum or Josh Allen will be starting. But if they are, it will be Case Keenum and Stephon Diggs, who made the Minneapolis Miracle, versus the Minnesota Vikings, as well as James Cook playing against his brother. And then there's the possibility that Xavier Rhodes gets elevated from the practice squad up for Buffalo, going against Minnesota. Then you also have Harrison Phillips, the defensive tackle / nose tackle from the Minnesota Vikings, will be playing against his former team in Buffalo. Obviously, both teams share a lot of similarities. Most notably, both are 0-4 in the Super Bowl. But it should be a good game overall, no matter who is playing quarterback for the Bills, especially with the way the secondary has been. And Tre'Davious White should be returning for this game for the Bills as well. We have America's Game of the Week. We have Packers versus Cowboys. Like I said earlier, I think Cowboys win when I said the Seahawks. Mike McCarthy revenge game, I guess. I've seen a comment out there saying that the Packers, Mike McCarthy, when he was there, coach, was not the problem. It was Aaron Rodgers. I do think both were part of the problem there. Mike McCarthy did have some stuff behind the scenes, so he was part of the problem. But I don't know too much about it, other than he didn't like showing up to team meetings and would rather get massages in his office. So, yay him. At least they weren't like Deshaun Watson's massages. And obviously, we have Denver versus the Titans. I do think Denver really needs this win to help keep their playoff chances afloat. As for the Titans, they want to bounce back and keep their foot on the AFC South, even though it really sucks. And if I think they make the playoffs, Titans, I don't think will even win a game with that offense, no matter who plays at quarterback. We have Cleveland versus Miami. Cleveland really needs this win. Keep their hold on in the AFC playoff race. As for Miami, they need the win to keep holding the AFC East. So, should be a fun, interesting game, especially with the way Miami's run defense has been playing. Just gonna get something to drink really quickly. I am in no way sponsored, but if Snapple would like to sponsor me, I would take it in a heartbeat. Moving on, we have the Rams versus the Cardinals. Both teams shouldn't be in the playoffs. I think no matter who loses this, shouldn't really get eliminated from the playoff race. They won't be eliminated, but we'll push them back. I don't think either team will make the playoffs, but I do think the Rams will win this game to keep themselves in the race, especially after losing to the Bucs. Obviously, we've got the Sunday morning game, the Bucs versus the Seahawks. This is in Germany. I think Seattle wins. That's all I'm going to really say. I don't know. I don't have too much on it other than Leonard Fournette really sucks. Well, this whole thing about playoff Lenny and him being this good player only really came because of fantasy, but Tampa really needs to fix their run game if they're going to even try to contend for the postseason or win a playoff game. Up next, we have the snooze fest of the week, Colts versus Raiders. I will probably look into the game, but I probably won't even watch it. I don't think I'd want to watch it. I think I'd rather watch Bills versus Vikings. Up next, we have the Chargers versus 49ers on Sunday Night Football. Both teams need to win. I think the 49ers will win. I think it is at home for the 49ers. I just see them getting healthier, even though Jason Verrett is now out for the season, even though he's going to make his comeback tonight. On that night. Then on Monday Night Football, we have the Commanders versus Eagles. I think this one is in Philadelphia. If so, I'm calling the Eagles. I think it'll be a good game. I really want to see how the Washington defensive line goes against the Eagles' O-line, but I don't really trust Washington's offensive line or run game to help at all in this game. And that is it for... Sorry, I think I have all the games covered. If I don't, sorry if I missed your game. I just don't think it was all that important to really mention for the week. As for the NFL injury update, so we are moving on from the games. We have Hunter Renfrow, who was placed on the short-term IR. He has been out the last few weeks. I'm surprised this has taken so long. And as well as Darren Waller, who was out last week. I think it was a calf injury. He is also on the short-term IR. So the already weak Raiders offense just got even weaker for the next 4 weeks. Moving on, we have Cam Dantzler. He is week to week. He likely won't be playing against the Bills. It's a big loss for the Vikings, I do think, as he has been really improving this season. But it will be rookie Caleb Evans starting in his place. who had a really good game against the Washington Commanders last week. So I think I will be getting one of his jerseys here soon. Of course, we have Josh Allen, who is considered day-to-day. He has a elbow injury, similar to something that a baseball player has, where he has some sort of tendon injury that goes up your arm like this and causes shooting pains, so I could see him not playing because of that. They say you could be just fine, you throw a pass once, and then it immediately comes back, and you're out for the rest of the day, and it really hurts. Then we have another notable one. Matt Stafford entered the concussion protocol yesterday. So it looks like John Wolford has the option to be starting this week against the Cardinals, who really use that. They need to win even worse than the Rams do. Of course, we also have Jason Verrett for the 49ers. He is out for the season. He tore his Achilles yesterday during practice. Was looking like he was going to finally get to play, coming back from an ACL tear last year. And this was going to be his season debut on Sunday Night Football. And now he's out again. I really like him. He was drafted in the first round to the Chargers in 2013 or 2014. Done for the season. Really sucks. He's had, I think, two Achilles tears and 3 ACL tears now. Yikes. Seems like he is always on the injured reserve, and I feel bad. Sean Gary of the Packers, he is also out for the season towards ACL. A few teammates, including Aaron Jones and Devondre Campbell, are coming out trying to say that they really need to remove turf fields. Over the past few seasons, I've definitely noticed it, especially in 2020, Jets versus 49ers, when there was quite a few injuries. Turf has become a big problem. Speaking of Packers, Aaron Jones, he's day-to-day. And then Kyler Murray is also day-to-day with a hamstring injury. I do not know about today, but he did not practice yesterday. I do not know who would start in his place, but it looks like it may have been more of a resting day for him. And I think he was supposed to practice today, but I'd have to double check. And then another noticeable change would be Blake Martinez, another Raiders player. He signed with them in the middle of the season, played these past 4 games. He retired. He was only 28. He was really good with the Packers a few years ago, then signed with the Giants, I think, in 2020. Played their last 2 years. Could be wrong. Could have been only last year, but he wasn't too bad, but they released him for cap purposes, and now he's retired after 4 games with the Raiders. This is quite surprising, if you ask me. And speaking of another Raider, who also had Packers stuff involved, was Jonathan Abram. They tried to trade him. He was waived, and now he was picked up, and he reunites with Rich Bisaccia in Green Bay. Another one of the first-round picks from Mike Mann, John Gruden area, who is gone. Yikes, they really do not know. They did not know how to draft. Obviously, you have Henry Ruggs, who had that terrible car accident. He's gone. Damon Arnett, he had that whole Instagram domestic violence assault thing on there. He was cut. Alex Leatherwood, he's now on the Bears after 1 season. Was the worst offensive tackle rookie in years. Even worse than forgot what's his name had with the Packers back in the 80s. Which is really something to do because he really did suck. Now going on to Jeff Saturday. He has been named the interim head coach for the Indianapolis Colts after they fired Frank Reich. Going into this more, I think this was more of a thing. It's like Chris Ballard, he was not fired. I do think he is already 1 foot out of Durham. He'll be fired after the season, but sum this up, it should have never been his fault. And more of the fault was Jim Irsay decided he wanted to move on to Carson Wentz after that Week 18 game, whereas Frank Reich did not. And what really pains me the most is when all these people say it was Carson Wentz's fault. Well, starting off 0-3 with a backup quarterback to start the season is not Carson Wentz's fault. Having the defense falter twice in overtime against the Titans is not Carson Wentz's fault. Yeah, if you want me to keep going, I sure can. Because he did not want Matt Ryan, but Jim Irsay did, and now he's benched. Jeff Saturday will move on with Sam Ehlinger as the starting quarterback, which I think is mainly Jim Irsay's doing. I think Jeff Saturday was more of this Irsay hiring, so he can just do whatever Irsay wants, considering to have the connection from back when Saturday was in Indianapolis. I also seen something about Irsay saying that doesn't know how to make sausage, but he knows how to construct an NFL team. I think that's false. You just looked into 2 generational talents, ruined one, and got 1 Super Bowl out of the other. I think he really knows how to build his good guitar collection and his DUI ticket collection as well. That's all I'm going to say on that. As for some other topics, we have the trade market obviously happening, and some of the players made their debuts. Like I said, I did not get to see much Bradley Chubb, but I did get to see TJ Hawkinson. Had 7 receptions for 7. It was either 7 receptions for 7 catches and 90 yards, or 9 receptions and 9 catches for 70 yards. Either way, that is still great. Absolute great addition. They only traded away 2 picks to get him, which was really just Detroit moving up in the draft, considering they also traded away 2 picks. So, shouldn't have done that. Detroit, he actually gets to play with a competent team. Also gets to be opened up more because of Justin Jefferson, so great trade. Chase Claypool, he had, I think, 21 yards total on the day for the Bears. Obviously, still was getting in to know more of the offense will be used more throughout the upcoming weeks. Looked serviceable in his first week. But otherwise, just overall mediocre. Obviously, up next we have Jeff Wilson, who is a really good trade after they trade away uh, the former Cardinals running back, Chase Edmonds, to the Broncos in that Bradley Chubb trade. Obviously, did not get to make his debut. He was on his bye week. Looked really good, I will say, in the few snaps he played. He did have more touches than Raheem Mostert. I can definitely see running back controversy going on with Mike McDaniel. Obviously, he had both of them last year in the 49ers offense. Yeah, I do think that Jeff Wilson, being the younger running back, has with less tread on his tires, he will continue to play more and overall take the starting role from Raheem Mostert. That is my take. But always, overall, we have my next coach. I think will be fired. I think it'll be Cliff Kingsbury and Josh McDaniels from the Raiders. I think those will be the next two and will be fired before the season ends. Another coach candidate I could see is Ron Rivera. I like Ron Rivera, but the game has passed him by. I will admit that. Those are the next coaches I think will be fired. Then lastly, we have my playoff predictions. So, I wrote them down. I'll have to go find them here in just a second. So, for my AFC predictions, I have the Chiefs being the number 1 seed and the Bills being the 2 seed. I think both of those could be switched around very easily. I have Cincinnati as the 3rd seed, Titans as the 4th, winning the AFC South. I don't think they'll win a home playoff game with their offense. Then we have Baltimore, Jets, and Miami for the wild card spots in that order. I do think Jets and Miami can also be switched around, battling out in the very competitive AFC East. As for my NFC, I have the Eagles and Vikings, who are basically running away with the number 1 and number 2 seed respectively. Not much to change there. I do think the Eagles will lose game, but I also think the Vikings will lose in our game. Even if they don't, Eagles do hold that tiebreaker. Sorry about that. I did something on my phone that I'm trying to fix. Of course, I do have Atlanta winning the NFC South. Not much to change there. And the NFC West, I have going to Seattle at the 3rd seed. Trying to think of the division name for a quick second. Then as far as for my wildcard seeds, I have the 49ers, the Cowboys, and the Giants. I think everyone else looks terrible. I don't trust the Giants. And I also kind of don't trust Seattle either. But I do think that Seattle will hold tiebreaker over the 49ers, which will prompt the 49ers to get the 5th or 6th seed. And that is it for my playoff predictions. As it for the stream as well. Obviously, I will try to look more into it for some better stream quality for next week. I'm still working on trying to get my desk set up here, but shit.